I'm really excited to talk to you today because if you've been following this channel, you know I've been in a huge knitting slump and I haven't actually finished anything in ages, I think months. And that ends today because I did finish something. I originally wanted to take you along on the whole knitting journey, but then I kind of realized that I think I just needed to wrap this up by myself and just have this one project that I'm keeping on the down low the whole time. And I'm done and I can show you now. And I thought it would still be worth it. Let me get it out of the drawer. Because I thought I could use it for some practical illustration. And this is it, and it looks like a crumpled little mess right now. And I will tell you why in a second, and if you do knit lace, then you probably already know. So this is it. This is the finished shawl here, and it has not been blocked. And I wanted to talk to you today about why blocking is important, how I do it. It doesn't mean that that's like the one right way to do it. That's how it works for me, and it's worked quite well so far. And what to keep in mind when you're blocking things. And this doesn't only apply to lace. You should actually kind of block everything because it just makes your knitting look way more polished and neat. I see a lot of people upload project pictures on Ravelry of really beautifully knit items, but a lot of the time, if they're not blocked, you can see that just putting that extra hour or 2 hours in, it would elevate the finished thing so much. And here we have this little crumpled thing, and you can see from me draping it on myself that it has this beautiful flower pattern. This is the River Maiden shawl by Anna Victoria, I think, on Ravelry. This is a paid for pattern that I really liked. It's very well written, and this is the before of that, and I'm going to take you along to blocking it and show you how I block my shawls. So when you block something, you really want to keep in mind the kind of yarn you're using for it. This is pure silk. This is heavy lace weight silk from Dye for Yarn, 100% Tussar silk. And from my experience, silk is usually quite sturdy, surprisingly, when blocking. There are other fibers that are not. And that also kind of plays into what fibers are suitable for what kind of knitting projects, because if you have a lace project, and this is a mistake that I made and I don't want you to make it, then you really want the blocking to stay for as long as possible. You will probably have to reblock stuff every once in a while, but I have shawls that are still in the same state of like looking really crisp that I wear in when I first made them 2 years ago, and I have shawls where that's decidedly not the case. And that is if you knit a shawl out of really springy yarn. So a lot of the time, if you try and knit lace with superwash merino, because it's very round and very springy, it will just kind of go back to its original state after a while, and it just won't look as kind of, okay, this is a pretentious word for it, but it won't look as architectural as if you use a yarn that stays crisp because it doesn't have that bounce, like for example silk or merino wool as well. If it's not like spun out of several threads but it's a single thread, it also works quite well. Or linen is very crisp, it works very nicely. So I have high hopes for this because it's 100% silk. And what I'm doing first is I am submersing this in water. I usually add like a little spritz of wool soap to the water, but you don't actually have to do that. And I usually use warm water and submerge the finished thing for at least 5 minutes so that any residual air can just get out of it. You can use like a cooking pot for it, for example, or a bowl, or you can just like put it in the sink and put the plug in and then run the sink. Since I have just moved, I actually don't know which of these choices I'm going to make, but I'm sure I'll find something that I can put some water in to block this in. And sometimes if I know that the person I'm giving something to, which in this case is my mom because this is her Mother's Day shawl, I make her one every year, I'm a bit late this year. I have reasons like moving, for example, but it's finally done. So if I know that a person has a particular scent that they like and I have that one, like for example a little bit of like Chanel perfume or something, I might add a spritz to the blocking water, not a whole bunch but just a tiny bit, so it has this like gentle scent of that perfume or essential oil. But essential oil can leave stains, so be careful with that. That person really likes. So let's go and submerge this. Next, you're going to need something to put your soaking wet, you should squeeze it out, it shouldn't be soaking wet, but your very moist item of knitwear on top of. And I'm really lucky because I have these blocking mats that my mother-in-law gave me as a present at some point. And I use them religiously because, as you can see, they're modular, so you can kind of like puzzle them together in a way that works for the shape of what you're making. And since I really like crescent shawls, I use them quite a lot in a kind of crescent-y shape puzzled together. But I didn't always have something this fancy, and you don't actually need that. I've seen people use towels, I've seen people use yoga mats. I used a yoga mat before I got these, it worked just fine. Just be sure that if you use something kind of thinner, you make sure to not damage the floor or wherever you're blocking on a surface, because the water might like soak through somewhere, or you might stick a needle through and scratch the floor. So that's quite important. But yeah, there's a lot of different options you can use. There's also fancier options, like some people have blocking wires. I actually don't have that yet. Now that I have a bit more space, I might get some, because you can just thread the tips of a blocked shawl and stuff through and it will be way more even. I'm using pins to pin this out. So yeah, let me lay this out and then I'll do a time lapse of me pinning the shawl so you can see how I kind of try to keep it symmetrical. If it's a little bit asymmetrical, please don't sweat it. No one will actually notice that when you have the shawl off the blocking mats. Here's the all squeezed up wet shawl. It looks really crumpled now. One important thing to know is that when you block something and you have the item wet, never ever wring it, always just squeeze. This looks horrible now, but it's going to be just fine. But if you do like a wringing motion, then you can actually really distort the fibers. So here I am laying out my shawl on my blocking mat as symmetrically as possible. It doesn't need to be perfect, but give it your best. I'm using these combs to pin out the top edge because it makes it much smoother. They were a really good purchase and definitely worth it. And then I'm just using sewing pins to, after pulling the shawl in place a little bit, pin out the edges. And as you can see, I was running out of space a bit on my blocking mat, so I'm using 2 bunched up sweaters to be able to pin it out to its full size. Improvise, improvise, improvise. Make sure you don't damage the floor. I know I said it before, but it's really important. And this is how it came out. As you can see, the lace is much crisper after blocking. You can see the pattern beautifully. The shawl is also much bigger, so it's not just a shawlette around the shoulder, but it really fits. And yeah, that's basically it from my side. This is why you should always block your garments, especially if they're lace knit. Thank you so much for spending time with me today for this little blocking video. I hope you found it helpful, and I will see you very soon. Bye!